right, let's get this show started. Hello, Milwaukee.
Hey.
All right, hello. I'm Areva Martin, and welcome to a very special edition of the Special Report. We're here at the Rise and Grind Cafe in the great city of Milwaukee, one of the key battleground states for this year's election, and we've got a powerful conversation lined up focusing on what matters most to our communities. So let's get right into it. This is a year where every vote matters, and one question that looms so large is how will disinformation, some of the disinformation we've been talking about, and the power of the black vote shape the future of America? I am joined by a very esteemed panel of local leaders right here from Milwaukee. Sequanna Taylor, she is the vice chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin.
That's Felicia, but that's fine.
So Sequanna Taylor is a state representative elect for District 11.
That's right.
All right. And Dora Drake is Black Leaders Organizing for Communities. Okay.
Senator-elect.
So everything is in front.
Right. That's it.
So representative for Wisconsin.
Right.
So she's
We can
doing
do that.
She's representative for Wisconsin.
So this should have been crossed off here.
Okay. So you know what?
Say whoever you
This
is.
beautiful lady on the left is going to introduce herself because my notes are all jumbled. So introduce
Your
yourself.
notes were great. So Sequanna Taylor, I currently serve for County Supervisor District 5, and I am the elect for State Representative in District 11.
Yes.
Hey, good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dora Drake, the state senator-elect for the 4th Senate District, currently the state representative for the 11th Assembly District and Wisconsin's Legislative Black Caucus Chair.
And I am David Crowley, and I am your Milwaukee County Executive.
Okay. To my right.
Good evening, Sharlen Moore. I am a newly elected 10th District Alderwoman.
Good evening, Angela Lange, Executive Director of BLOC, Black Leaders Organizing for Communities.
Lakeisha Meyer, State Representative for Assembly District 12 and Chair of the Black Caucus for the Wisconsin Democrats.
I'm Dr. Rob Pico Baker. I am a professor and troublemaker.
And an awesome person that helped us out. I'm Laressa Taylor, Alderwoman for the 9th District in the city of Milwaukee.
Fantastic. All right, so tonight we're talking about one of the biggest issues on everyone's minds, and that's jobs, access to jobs, wages, and economic opportunity. And we know for many African Americans, that has been one of the biggest questions looming in this election. There's a big article in the New York Times about 2 weeks ago, really focusing on Milwaukee. I'm sure many of you saw it. We talked about it, Dr. Baker. Article said that Milwaukee went all in for Obama in 2008, bought into and was excited about the hope and change message. And that after Obama got into office, not just the first time, but the second time in 2012, that a lot of Milwaukee residents started to sour. They didn't feel the hope that they were promised, and they didn't see the change that they expected to see. Milwaukee's Mayor Johnson, the city's first elected black mayor, says some national policies from the Biden-Harris administration have matriculated down to the local level too. He talked about college debt forgiveness, capping insulin for seniors on Medicare at $35, funding to remove lead pipes across the state. But why, County Executive, if we have this long list of things that we know the Biden-Harris administration have done, why isn't it feeling that way to folks on the ground?
I think that's an excellent question, Areva, and I think many of the folks here have been battling this question every day as we talk about this particular election. And so I think that, one, when we think about black folks in elections, we've never trusted what has been going on, right? And I think what's very unique is that now folks want to be on the sideline now that we have a black woman actually running for the highest office in the land. But let's face it, not only have we been able to invest in the removal of lead pipes, Milwaukee County has been able to invest in the largest build of affordable housing all across the county, right? Many people don't know for 2 years in a row we had the lowest unsheltered homeless population across the entire country right here within Milwaukee County. And so when we think about the things and talk about the issues that are at hand, I think more people are wondering, okay, but what about me directly? And so folks need to understand that when we talk about policies, sometimes they may not hit you on an individual level, but they do hit on a neighborhood level, they do hit on a community level, at a city and a county level. And so you may not have received a direct benefit, but our community as a whole have been receiving many different benefits. As county executive, I can tell you what the administration under the Trump administration did for Milwaukee County or did not do for Milwaukee County, but there's a plethora of things that I can tell you that the Biden-Harris administration has done. But at the same time, it's really about how do we bring other trusted messengers to the fold, right? I know I'm a politician, but also grew up in the hood, so I have a level of trust. But how do we start to build more leaders to get involved and let their voices be heard? It was what I think is going to get us over the hump.
So I want to push back a little on what you said. I'm glad that you laid this foundation for what has happened positively for Milwaukee. But there was a study in 2020 by Mark Levine. He's a professor at the University of Wisconsin. He said black median household income in Milwaukee, adjusted for inflation, declined by an astonishing 30% since 1979. The same study found the unemployment rate for Wisconsin's black residents hit 5.6% during the second quarter of 2024. Professor Baker, is this a colleague of yours?
Me and this brother right here?
No, Mark
Levine.
Yes,
Mark
okay,
Levine is a colleague of
so
mine.
do you agree with the findings in the study? And if so, explain how we, reconcile what the county executive said about all the positive things economically that's happened for Milwaukee with this study and the findings from Mark Levine.
Well, I do definitely think there's two Milwaukees taking place around class in the black community. And there are a lot of black folks that are leaving Milwaukee, going to Brown Deer, Glendale, and are really trying to escape the poverty. But in this very area, we see people fighting back, building new houses. And I don't think we can underestimate the change that is taking place at city council and at the county with leadership. We have black women who are taking the lead at the city. I'm surrounded by them right now. And I think, County Executive Crowley cannot be understated for the transformation that he's been doing inside the county that's having a ripple effect. And so, yeah, 2020 was tough, but I do see bright futures happening as long as we continue to not tell the negative story. We love the negative story, Areva, here, and we focus on it. You know what I'm saying? And so we gotta tell the good stuff too, otherwise we get caught in being the bad city.
Can I chime in about 2020?
Oh, absolutely.
So when we talk about 2020, we all know where we was, right? We were in the middle of COVID, right? And not to say that the numbers aren't correct, but to also state at that time, we wasn't even allowed to go outside of the house. So when you talk about unemployment, to be honest, most people were either doing work from home jobs or they wasn't working, depending on what job that they have. And so I'm not saying all of it should equate to that with the data and statistics, but we also have to understand that we was in the middle of a pandemic worldwide, just not in Milwaukee, right? So if we get numbers from that data, to me, it'll be a little screwed just because of where we were as a nation, not to say that we still don't have work to do.
I think it's extremely important to point out, just to backtrack a little bit, that we also live in a city and a county that was built on segregation.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so when you think about where we were when black folks was migrating here, we could only be in this particular neighborhood that we are in right now, which is the Bronzeville neighborhood. And so racism plays a huge part in what is happening in Milwaukee County. And so back in 2019, a year prior to my election, Milwaukee County was actually the first jurisdiction in the country to declare racism as a public health crisis.
Yes, we do.
With my election in May of 2020, we started working on our first strategic plan, focusing on how do we create intentional inclusion, bridge the gap, and put our money where our mouth is by investing in equity. And so our vision for Milwaukee County is that we can become the healthiest county in the state of Wisconsin by achieving racial equity. And so until we make sure that we are in a space to where not only government, but the businesses, the nonprofits, and the community leaders are all on the same page in making sure that we grow this community. And I don't mean by growing the black population and growing wealth by importing people to come to Milwaukee, but making sure that we are growing and cultivating our own right here from the very roots of
Enhancing
Milwaukee.
those lives. Right.
Angela, you organize voters, right?
Yes.
You go out, you talk to voters, you're knocking on doors. Is the message that we're hearing from the panels, is that resonating with the voters you're talking to?
It depends on who you ask. There's definitely folks that don't feel that impact, right? They see the numbers, they see all these, statistics that come out on a national level and don't feel as black men specifically that they're reflected in that level of success. And, going back a little bit to kind of like the mis and disinformation part of it, we were just having a conversation earlier about how when you have black folks that have a healthy distrust for government for reasons I think we all know and understand, that makes us more susceptible to misinformation, trying to put together these pieces. And so if you aren't seeing your values and your issues and your stories reflected in these jobs numbers, you start to wonder what is fact from fiction. And we've heard some wild stories on doors as well that I think a lot of times are rooted in misogyny, if we're being honest. But I think it comes to a point where I think right now people have very strong feelings about the election, and rightfully so, but people tend to shame black voters. Well, don't you know? Don't you know what'll happen? I'm sorry, you talking to me like that, trying to encourage me to vote? I'm not gonna do anything you tell me.
Absolutely.
But if it's like, okay, where did you hear that from? Do you have a link that I can check out? Let's fact check this on the spot. Let's have a conversation. We need to be leading these conversations through a level of compassion, not through condescension, like, I'm gonna be honest, like a lot of white folks do, trying to knock on doors in our community. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that if we talk about meeting folks where they're at, that also means saying, okay, well, where did you hear this? What makes you think this way? Okay, let's have a conversation. Or you're upset that student loan debt hasn't been forgiven yet? Let's direct that anger to the appropriate people. Right? It's not the president. You want to be mad that the John Lewis Voting Rights Act hasn't passed? Let's talk about who is holding it up, right? And I think when people have frustration and anger and rage, I think that's also where civic engagement and civic education comes in, because people have all sorts of grievances, but they don't know who to direct them at. And I think that's important too, being able to have these conversations and say, hey, you think your life was better because you got these stimulus checks? Let me break down the fact that Trump didn't want that.
That's exactly what they want.
Let's also break down the fact that that was a congressional thing. And then when he found out that he could put his name on it, then he wanted it. Right? And so we need to be having these conversations through like an educational, compassionate lens, instead of being like, what you mean? That's racist, that's sexist, I can't believe you're saying all of this. We need to like understand folks. So we are hearing the same things in the field, but we're able to move folks through a level of compassion.
No, that's so great. So speaking of moving people, Obama came out, gave a speech. Some people said it was like the pound cake speech. A lot of folks took offense to it. They felt like he was doing what you just said we can't do, which was kind of talking down to people, telling brothers you need to do this. Why aren't you guys, as enthusiastic about VP Harris as you were for me? What do you think?
So I'll be honest. So when I first heard about, the backlash that, former President Obama said, I honestly went to look for the interview myself, because knowing how he's led this country in the past, he's always been candid, but he's always had a heart for people. And so in my eyes, when I looked at the interview, I can understand, how people came to that reality. But honestly, how I saw that as a big uncle talking to his nephew saying, hey, let's have a real talk. And that may have been something that should have been just a one-on-one with the cameras not around. Because I do think that there are certain conversations in our own community that when we have them, we understand the tone. But if it's publicized, it may not be taken the same way. And, I do think that the interview and the conversation President Obama had with those voters, I think highlighted, a problem that we do have in our community that we're seeing. And it is, what is the problem with having a black woman being in power? Do I think it is solely on black men? No. Because we've seen in not the last election, but when President Trump won, it was white women that did a whole 180 on everybody.
Absolutely.
And we have, I think, 14 million young people that are eligible to vote in this election. So there are other demographics that can make or break this election. So I believe we can hold all these things true, yes, there's maybe some accountability for the black men in our community, but we can't demonize them, especially in places where they feel like they haven't been seen.
And we can't let others do it either.
Okay, so our VP rolled out her economic plan. She's been talking a lot about the opportunity economy, and specifically a plan earlier last week for black men. You know, 1 million black male entrepreneurs, $20,000 forgivable loans, focus on health, focus on diseases that chronically impact black men, focus on education. Only 1% of public school teachers are black men, a focus on getting more black men in the teaching profession, and creating pathways for apprenticeships. Not everybody wants to go to college. Creating opportunities for black men to get jobs that are going to be high-paying jobs. Sounded like just this great plan. You think everybody would just be, yeah. And Dr. Baker was on my show with me, and Dr. Andre Brock, he's a communications social media specialist. He said the internet went crazy, like crazy negative. Like, what, black people just want some weed and the plan includes legalizing marijuana and then making it easier for folks who've been just as involved because of marijuana charges to get licenses to open dispensaries. Right. So I thought there would be just like, you know, dancing in the streets. Sharlen, why wasn't that like the best plan ever?
Sharlen, like, huh?
And tell me how folks in your district and, you know, your voters, how was that plan received?
Wow, no, there was no dancing in the streets. You know, I think Angela, you know, hit on some really, really good points that our young people, they have to see themselves in all of this. You know what? We go to young people and we go to community when we want something.
Yeah.
Every 4 years, every 2 years, everybody got their hand out for something. Just come vote for me. Like, it's this rhetoric that we see every single time, and we're not truthful. We're not telling the truth. And so it sounds good, but I think, you know, here being in Milwaukee, you know, we've heard it before. It's just like, yeah, you know, and they miss us. And so with the population that I've, you know, worked with and just working with young people, they don't see themselves in it. We haven't built relationships with them. We haven't, you know, allowed them to know this is where you are in all of this. Especially when we talk about local stuff like, yeah, the presidency, that's fantastic, right? But when we talk about the things that impact us locally, we're not having those conversations with young people. We're just not. And so we miss them. And I hate to see it all the time because folks only come around when we want something from our community. They come in our neighborhoods, they knock on our doors, they put on, you know, they put flyers at our doors and expect us to step up.
That's when it's fun.
Listen, y'all know it, right? But when it comes to some of the real issues, education, you understand what I'm saying? When we're talking about the real issues, housing, education, like employment, transportation, how are we getting folks around? Those are the real issues that we need to see more about. Child, listen, let's not talk.
Well,
thank you.
In charge.
Jump in.
I wanted to jump in just because I think all of the things that Dr. Biko and everybody has talked about, David, county executive.
Put some respect on it.
Put some respect on his name. What our county executive started off talking about, you talked about that there was a significant decline since the 1970s or early 80s in the median income for black families, but you look at the total deindustrialization of Milwaukee. In our entire state, in the state of Wisconsin, 26% of people have a college degree. So when you think about that, this state was built on either farming or machine manufacturing, blue collar type work. So when you look around our city today, you talk about apprenticeships.
Let me stop you.
Yes, ma'am.
If your economy is built on blue collar jobs, there are two people in the race. One person, or two people at the top of this race, one person so pro-union and one person has been so anti-union. So why is a state that is so focused on manufacturing, presumably mostly union jobs, why isn't there just an overwhelming amount of support for the pro-union candidate?
And when race enters the conversation.
Or the fact that we don't have all of those manufacturers
So
no
when
anymore.
race enters the conversation, especially in a city like Milwaukee, show me where the apprenticeship centers are.
Yeah.
And I'll show you the suburbs or out on some farms. So there's no bus line that can get you from Third and Ring over to wherever it is in Brookfield. You go learn how to build a house.
Yeah.
When you take away the programs that exist in Milwaukee Public Schools from having a trade program where you can graduate with a certificate to go build a house, learn how to be a plumber and fix everything in it, that does not exist for our children. So you are slowly starving the base that he's talking about with the people with jobs that they could build to do this in the line of work. So the only people that are left are people who either come in from out of state or are here and chose not to leave or came back.
Yeah.
So there's really the two cities that's going on, really two states that's going on in this, you know, where we live. So all of that is connected when you talk about transactional relationships. Yes, you come to my church every 4 years on Sunday.
Right.
And you say, I sure do need y'all vote. Yes, you come knock on my door and you have everybody come on a bus from here, there, and everywhere to knock on doors and say, we sure do need black folks to vote. But when you see the tangibles, Kim, you said something when you first got there, you said mission. In Milwaukee, we dealing with mission versus mediocrity, baby.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of mediocrity that comes from top on down with people who smile and get elected, even though they may look like us. And they don't have our best interests at heart.
All right, she calling names.
All of that is a possibility. When Alderwoman Sharlen talked about what we need to do as far as civically educating, that's our job too.
Yeah.
That's our job to do. So when you see me sitting in church or at a sorority meeting or wherever, you say, hey, explain this to me. I'm going to explain it to you. But then when you see people, oh, I don't want to, you know, some of us, we don't. Pico said we move other places. Sometimes we want to escape us too. And we don't want to talk to Ted and Bob and JoJo and the people who may not want to hear all of what you're trying to say and the way in which it may be presented to them. So they don't want to hear that part or deal with people like that. But that's us. Amen. That's us. And it's on us as elected officials because we get the check.
You know, I'm gonna add another layer on that, right? Because we was just talking about Mark Levine. A couple years before that, Mark Levine did a study and it talked about how 50% of the black men in their 30s and 40s were just as impacted.
Yes.
Just as impacted.
Justice
Okay.
impacted.
Okay.
So when you got 50% of your elders, in a sense, who have been involved in the system, your fathers, your uncles, and they're still being held back because of decisions that they made 20 years ago, we have an issue. So when we talk about money going into manufacturing, it is going into manufacturing. It's just not. We just can't get those manufacturing jobs
Because they're not.
because
no longer
they're
in the
not
city.
in the city of Milwaukee.
They've moved outside the city.
As a civil rights lawyer, I saw this stat about the percentage of African American men incarcerated in Wisconsin
More than anywhere in the
versus,
world.
it was like 47%
More
of
than
your
anywhere
prison
in the world.
population is black, and like the state is like 5%. That just broke my heart in the most profound way.
But we also, the other thing is like, and this is getting a little wonky, but like, we don't control our own fate. You know, as the county executive, as much as I want to be able to invest in different things, I got to continuously ask for permission, okay, from the state. Now, I'm a former state representative. When you think about 99 individuals within the assembly, we have what, 8? Or excuse me.
I think we have 8.
8.
It was 9.
It was 9. It's 8.
It was 9. So we
Less than 10%.
less than 10%, right? And then we only have 2 black women in the Senate out of 33. And so that makes it more difficult. So when you talk about having to continuously build relationships with people who don't necessarily see you as an equal, as a peer at times, it makes it so difficult to get things done.
Real story, just to highlight the dynamic of the state, justice impacted people, and what that means for our community. I was sitting on the workforce committee at the time, and they were discussing, I think, a project about one of the prison facilities out north in Wisconsin. And literally verbatim, the state representative stated, it would be a shame if this facility was to close down because that means there'll be no jobs for my community.
Right.
Which translates to
It's housed
if
by
we
our
don't have
community.
our people locked up,
Yeah.
they
They
can't.
families don't eat.
And that is the struggle that so many civil electeds deal with, because yes, we fight for what's right, we fight for the issues that we know are important to black men, to black women, but to the point that county exec made, it's a numbers game too. And so we have to go to every single state representative. You also have to talk to the speaker, who can control where the bills go in different committees, and the president of the Senate to even get the majority to maybe get to the governor's desk. And then, God forbid, whoever the governor is, then you have to convince them to sign the bill. That's it.
All right, we know structural racism, we know systemic racism is a part of this system, but we also know that's a lot of reasons some people say they disengage, right?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
Bob told us today he didn't vote because they both were horrible, basically.
Yes.
So we get
That's
that
how
false
they
equivalency. So we have to resist those urges, and
Yes.
as Dr. Baker said, we have to resist focusing too much on the negative, because we all know the negative. We all have experienced it. No matter who you are, no matter how successful you are, you've had an experience where you are reminded that you're black in America. So we know that. But we have an opportunity in this election, and I'm impressed with the number. I know the state's population of black people is small. So as you said, to see this many African-American elected local leaders is impressive. When I was in Phoenix.
But it's
and
just
Tempe-
Milwaukee. That's the difference, though. Like, we're all elected in
But
Milwaukee.
isn't most of the population though in the state
in Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where the action is, and you all are controlling stuff in the biggest city in the state. And then I know you have your challenges. You got to go
but
to
listen.
the governor, but I'm glad that I could find 7 or 8 folks to be a part of this conversation versus some cities I'm going into, it's like one person. It's like 2 people. So I just want to give you all some acknowledgement. Let's just clap it up for fighting through. And I don't know how old you all are, but Kim, they look like they 30 years old.
I'm gonna say that's a great.
I'm 35, so they look at 30 to me, so, you know, I'm feeling good about that.
For me, listening to this,
We need your mic.
Somebody's on the thing.
No, we have mics.
I hear you. Soft spoken in the blue jacket. I looked in the back, the people was like this. What's she saying? No, what I heard is that you all got it together because you know where the problem starts. And it seems like there's a lot of work to be done here, and it's like at the bottom. When I say you got to build up the things that we might have other places you guys don't have, and especially when you say they're taking out, well, that's everywhere, the trade in the school, and this is a place where you need the trade. Huge issues, but sometimes your hands are tied. Y'all got a lot of work to do here, so I won't be back.
But I think that speaks directly to the issue, right?
look forward to seeing you.
Because, and I'm gonna let the Alderwoman go, but I think that misery loves company.
Right.
And if you look at the way that one particular candidate runs, he's running on misery.
Yes.
You know,
And fear-mongering.
and so because he's trying to he's attaching himself to everybody's misery. Everybody feels like, oh, he's just like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Grievance culture.
You know, and at the end of the day, he is creating and making sure that we keep that crab in the barrel mentality. You know, and so it is up to us. And I will tell you, like for us, you know, me, I'm always talking about health, but I look at health not as a non-traditional way, but money is health, transportation is health, housing is health, right? All these things are health. And so we need a candidate, personally for me, like Kamala, who's going to breathe and talk life into America, right? Because right now, so much has been sucked out of the air, the soul has been sucked out of America for far too long that nobody believes in the idea of America anymore. And I think that right now, when I look in this room and we're having this conversation, it lets me know that we gotta speak to the life of politics, we gotta speak to the future, but also, you know, speak to what we're gonna do for many of these individuals' children. Right? Because a lot of the times they're thinking about themselves, but it's like, you know what do you want for your daughter, for your son? Because with my 3 black daughters, I'm thinking within myself that this is what they need in order to have the world that they deserve to live in.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna say a couple of things, because now it's mimicking kind of what everybody is saying. This is really an important time, because this is the time that we've had the most African Americans in powers of position, in the positions of power right now. This is, we have the largest number of women on the Common Council right now. We have the largest number of African American women on our Common Council right now. And like they were saying, so often it has been show up every 4 years, but right now, I think we have to retrain our people to understand that we're right here. There's lots of times that I go out and I have to tell them, they say, well, they don't care. They're gonna say they're gonna do what they wanna do. I go, no, I'm right here. This is me. Here are the they right here. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you need, so that now I can go and be your spokesperson. So it's really important, I think, right now for the public to understand that we are here, but it's important for us to retrain the way that they're thinking. In addition to that, we talked about our children. We need to begin to retrain our people as that we can have generational wealth. I see too often that we're just constantly running at these jobs, but we don't think about those things. I'm a 17-year veteran teacher, and I started telling my students, listen, you don't have to wait till you get grown to begin to be your career. You don't have to wait till you get grown to become a homeowner. Let's think about how to get to that point right now, because there are people who are graduating and they're becoming homeowners at such an early age, and we need to start training our people to do that, because we got to just change the way that we're thinking about wealth and about our power. So,
No, excellent point. I want to just move the conversation now, because this election, there are some people who say we shouldn't focus on those voters who are, irregular voters. They don't vote every election cycle. Maybe they voted for 2008, the presidential election. Maybe they didn't come back to 2016. Maybe they didn't vote in 2020. So there are some people that believe that we should be focused on y'all, the people that vote all the time. Now, that's not my belief. I'm on this Battleground State Tour because I believe we need every voter, and we need to reach into our communities and talk to Bob and talk to Ted and all of their buddies, because to win, we are going to need those voters. And I think we still have an opportunity, 15 days out, not a whole lot of time, but we still have time. And we know people vote when they get a call, when they get a tap on their shoulder from someone that they trust, right? A trusted messenger. Everybody's over the ads. Everybody's not going to the rally. Everybody's not going to wait in line for 3 hours, go on, do all that. But we have people in our own communities that we can tap into. And so I want to hear from you all. How are you all going to motivate the voters in Milwaukee? Not the rally people. They're there. They're cheerleaders. They're surrogates. They're all individual surrogates. But the people that we met today, because I don't think Bob is going to vote, but I think Bob can be convinced to vote. And we opened that door and started that conversation. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Baker. You have students that you deal with at the University of Wisconsin. That's right. What are you saying to those students who may feel apathetic right now, may feel like everything is going wrong because they've heard all the horrible things that are going wrong by one of the candidates?
I like to use the Shirley Chisholm quote, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And our young people are definitely, of all races, are on the menu. Whether it's Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff is gonna be gone. College is going up. But I want to just lift up the fact that I think part of our problem is that the Democratic actors and the organizations, they're super corny. They're super corny, and then they try to come in with these corny ideas or mediocre ideas, and then they take the resources away, and then the people that should be in there, they fight with them, and they get mad, and then they don't get their checks till after the election. And so one thing we need to do is take over the party. A young brother called me today who's in this room, and he asked me to a Democratic Party event, and I said, I'm only going because you're inviting me. And that will take us not being afraid to go at some elders who have been in the way. And that's tough to say, but we are gonna have to get them out the way, get them white people out the way. And what I'm doing on the 27th, I'm doing a big event with a bunch of other people like JP, Chicken P, Maya P. If you don't know who those people are, your kids do. Big Frank. It's going to be at midterm. We're trying to get several thousand people there, so hopefully the police will rock with us and not shut us down.
Okay, so you say the Democratic Party apparatus
They got to get out the way.
needs to get hipper.
They're
I
going
wouldn't
to
say-
get out the way. Not even hip. They got to get out the way.
I wouldn't even say don't even get out the way, but a lot of people don't understand, and I'm saying this as a Democrat, as chair of the Black Caucus of the Democrats. It's me. I'm a card carrying member of the Democratic Party. If I ask people in this room who's a card carrying member of the Democratic Party, I bet you may have a few hands, and it's probably us.
It's us. It's us.
They got a card and everything.
Yes, it's us.
So you pay $10. For $10 every year, you too can be a member of the Democratic Party.
Thank you for
Just
that.
saying.
Thank
No,
you.
and the reason I bring that up is because people don't realize that parties are businesses.
They are.
Politics is run by business.
Yes,
And
it
if
is.
you can vote Democrat all day long, but if you're not inside to know what he's talking about, how the checks get cut, how we get surrogates to ask for, all of these things, because we're not in the room.
Right.
And when the young white college kids
Yes.
come from wherever they come from and go all
Everywhere.
across the country and knock doors and sit in these offices and do
get
internships
paid.
and all this stuff, there's opportunity to be had there. But when we don't know, so that's why I'm doing the infomercial for $10.
So, but wait a minute, you want us to
Sequanna
join?
is in here somewhere.
Key one right
Wait
there.
a minute, you want people to join the party?
Absolutely, I do. Because
What
I
are we
want
gonna get for our $10?
I will, because you get.
But the more voices you bring to that table, the more voices you bring to that table, we can change it. That's what she's saying.
We have county party meetings, all of those things. Like I said, it's just like going to your church meeting, your sorority meeting. What do you get when you go? I
there.
do more work for AKA, and I pay them to do it. So it's the same thing. So you're doing the same thing. It's a different type of organization, but it gets you access and opportunity to understand. People go, oh, how did you get to be a delegate and don't go to DNC? Because I go to the
meetings.
Because I got that card.
Right.
That's right. So all of those things that come, how you get to be on TV, you can do all this stuff, because you got that card. So you want your card? Where's Key One? Raise your hand.
Key one right here.
Talk to him.
All right, a shout out for the Democratic Party. Get your card. Get your card.
Look, Key one like, why me?
So now that that part's out the way, we're gonna go to the grassroots part. Going back to
the question, Angela. Thank you.
You know, at Block, for us, we really live at the intersection between mass incarceration and democracy, and how that plays a role into not having access to democracy. And in the state of Wisconsin, you have your voting rights restored once you're off paper or off supervision. A lot of people don't know that. We are knocking on doors. There's a woman that we knocked on her door once, and you know, a lot of times people say, oh, I can't vote, I'm a felon. And canvassers are like, sorry about that, and move around. And we train our folks to say, hey, I don't mean to be invasive. Are you off paper?
Right.
There was a woman that was off paper. You not you not you don't have to report to a PO. Yup, you good.
And you're clear.
You off probation.
You're clear.
You paid your fines.
You good.
You paid your fines.
You paid all your fees and fines.
Yeah, you no longer have to report to you're no longer on supervision, and your voting rights are restored. And a lot of people don't know that, and so we have to have that follow up. So one, if you can't vote, that's okay. There's a million other ways to be civically engaged, because we are not seeing you only as valuable by your ability to vote. There's other ways to participate in this democracy. Two, going back to, you know, I don't know the type of doors that y'all hit, if y'all are hitting every door, but if you sign up to canvass with another organization, you will have what we call the minivan, and you will have targeted doors, and those are those voters that you're talking about. My team, they were like, Angela, why are we talking to two houses on a block? I'm walking past people sitting on the porch. Why are we not engaging
Every
them?
door.
And so if you're only talking to, you know, the regular voters, you're missing out people who've had their voting rights restored, or who had just turned 18, because they're not on those lists, but are looking to be activated and engaged. And I'm gonna be honest, I hate the term low information voter.
Yeah.
That's how people like talk to our community. Oh, those low information voters, how are you talking to the low propensity voters, this and that? How are you actually engaging people and seeing them as opportunity voters and an opportunity to bring them along and have conversations. And so going back to the Democratic Party, I think it's important to make sure that you're sprinkling in how are you talking to voters that are desperately looking to be engaged but may not be on the list for various reasons. So we hit every door every once in a while, and the goal of that is that we capture those people's information, and with enough contact, then they will become regular voters and they will be in that database later on. And so I think it's important to make sure that we're not doing the same old tactics, because then we're talking to the same old people. And if we want to bring people into our universe, if people are walking away, we can't keep narrowing who we're talking to.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Because there are some people who believe we should only be talking to each other. So, no, this is...
We did enough talking to each other.
We did. We knocked on every door, but we did forget to get their information. One of them was cute. I was going to ask.
Oh. So you are coming back.
But I wasn't thinking
Right.
because Areva was running things. I was nervous. She said we're supposed to knock on these doors. But we went on down the block and knocked on everybody's door and talked to people. And people was peeping out the window. I was uncomfortable.
See, now you just did something called open the door. That's a legal term. So now I got to tell your business. So when we were knocking doors for Mayor Karen Bass, the second gentleman came to one of the stops. So the second gentleman has Secret Service detail. Now Kim thought this was a good opportunity to hit on the Secret Service. The men were there protecting the second gentleman of the United States of America. And Kim thought that was a good opportunity to try to slip her number, slide in a man's DM.
It was a test. I wanted to see if he was focused. I have a question. Because we did have Bob say, this was interesting because I hear this a lot, about when they say politicians and what the people believe. They're not going to do nothing. That's what he kept saying. He was like, ain't nothing changed. I'm not going to vote because nothing happens. They don't do nothing. So, huh?
What did you ask for?
Yeah.
That's
the question. That's the rhetorical.
What to say? What then?
What do you need?
What do you need? Yeah.
What do you need?
What do you need?
That's what I should say to him.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so y'all gonna have me caught up?
You said you saw somebody cute.
In these streets of Milwaukee. Y'all gonna have me all
You
up in
went.
somebody's house.
No, you're not.
Areva gotta represent me.
Oh my God, no.
Give me another way to say that.
Send him this way.
Asking for one.
Yeah.
It's because
Somebody else take
because we
You said he was cute. No,
because we don't know everything, and that's the reality.
Yeah.
All of us have our specialities, what we know, but
Yeah.
we don't know everything. And so any good elected official, elected, not politician, will say, tell me what you need. Tell me what you need. And I think just for us to, and it happens, so I gotta say it, sometimes we don't engage with folks if we don't think we can get something in return. That's right. And real story, just this past weekend, you know, there's a group of actually members of the African immigrant community here. One of the leaders came to me and said, hey, we feel like we're not seen, and we are honestly more progressive in our policies, but we don't know if you guys are actually going to come talk to us. And I had to sit in that and validate that that was her experience. And I think too often when we're trying to tell the facts, you know, and prove our point, we then, in a way, discredit what they're feeling, and then people turn off and turn away. Because of me saying, you know what, I recognize it and we can do better, I sat in one of their meetings. And I sat and listened to the issues that they cared about, their experiences, what they want. And can I tell you, those 4,000 organizers that they had on standby, they are now organized for Vice President Kamala Harris.
They are.
Wonderful. Great story.
And making sure that we are telling people that we are here and you need to tell us what you need so we can now fight for you the way you need us to.
Great point. All right, we're going back.
I'm gonna be brief and say this. So we all have a role. You know, Angela talked about just, you know, the grassroots. I came from grassroots. So, you know, she's on the block, they're hitting the doors, they're, you know, figuring out how to connect with community. We have some great community partners that go into the schools, right? And they're teaching young people about their voting rights and, you know, how you get engaged. And when we talk about just, you know, and us as electeds, we have a part as well when you know, when you mention like communication, is the voting material in different languages? We talk about that all the time. You know, our websites, do we have them talking to different people because they're in different languages, right? So we all hold a part, but when we talk about each and every single one of us, y'all know y'all got people in your family. I don't need to talk to 1,000 people. I don't need to sit on a platform. I don't need to necessarily be in front of hundreds of people. But what about the people in your family? What about those young people? What about those adults that, you know, are curious about it and have never voted? Those are the people that we need to be talking about. And then what Kim said, the plan. What's the plan? We don't talk to people about, well, how you gonna vote? You gonna go in person? Because, you know, me and my family, we go in person. We go, you know, on election day, we're like, come on, I'm bringing all the kids. They are voting age now. So we all go vote together. We make that a tradition, right? So we all have to be engaged in our own way. But please, y'all, let's start with our family. Let's talk to that person next door. Because again, in Milwaukee, sometimes we ain't even talking to the person next door to us. You understand what I'm saying? I'm gonna talk to my next door neighbor. Y'all voting this year? Because, you know, even though I'm an elected living next to her, before that, I have a relationship with her. Y'all need food? Listen, my church do a grocery giveaway. You know, I'll make sure to bring y'all something back. The kids need book bags, whatever it may be. I need to make sure that I'm supporting and engaging them.
Let me ask you this, Andrew, about getting voters to the polls. That came up too with the gentleman. He has a elderly or a sickly relative. Does Milwaukee have a plan?
They have transportation.
A process?
Yes.
Okay.
So one, there's curbside voting.
Yes.
And so if you cannot physically get into the polling place, they are supposed to bring a ballot to you at your curbside in your vehicle. So that's first thing. You just need to request that. So if you know anybody that needs that is available, you just need to ask. Second of all, transportation. Souls to the Polls does an excellent program. And I don't know the number offhand, but if you go on social media and you type in Souls to the Polls, I just retweeted it earlier actually, you can call their hotline and schedule a ride to the polls. And so a lot of folks, I even had some white folks email me talking about, hey, can I contribute this to Block? And I'm like, go to Souls to the Polls, go to other folks. And so there are more than enough kind of structures in place to make sure that there's no excuse for folks. But what I will say that I think gets lost in the conversation is if we want to talk to those irregular voters, say those voters that only show up during presidential seasons, they haven't voted since 2020. We have had a census since then, and there are new maps and there's new redistricting. And what we saw in 2022, because people only vote in the big elections, a lot of people were getting turned away because their polling place had moved because of the census and redistricting. And who knows, if you're showing up in a line, you know, waiting an hour or so, and then you get there and you finally realize, oh, it's like the wrong place, you may not have enough time. You may have to get back to work or pick up the kids. So this is also another added benefit that early voting starts tomorrow.
That's what we say, early voting tomorrow.
If you want to go ahead and get it out the way, you can join the Block team at 11 a.m. at the Capitol Drive. I keep wanting to call it Midtown. The Capitol Drive Voting Center, which is across the street from Midtown. But get it done early, and if you want to wait or whatever, make sure you double check your polling place because it may have changed if you have not voted in a while, and we want to make sure that people aren't getting turned away for ridiculous reasons that could have been avoided, unfortunately, because we have voter suppression in our state.
Yeah, and I think everybody is always focused on November 5th, but like Angela said, early voting starts tomorrow. If we can get individuals to the polls doing early voting, we're not waiting till November 5th. I'm saying it in a way when I'm on Dora still is that November 5th is the last day to vote, right? It's the last day to vote, and I understand what we're saying when we're going to other places because I was just in California, right? I know we got an issue there, and then I'm going to Arizona too, and some of the things that I'm hearing are some of the same things that we're having happening here. But I also think, once again, early vote. Don't say wait till November 5th. We don't know what can happen by November 5th. It can snow. We live in Wisconsin. They ain't going if it snow. They ain't going if it rain, right? Let's just be honest.
Tomorrow, October 22nd,
early voting starts.
I want to ask my DNC chair lady a question. And this is about money. Does the DNC have money on the streets in Milwaukee?
Oh, yes, they do.
And
It's a lot of money in Milwaukee.
Money. Give it to me in about 30 seconds.
Yes, the DNC has invested quite a bit of money in Wisconsin, and especially in the city of Milwaukee. On black media alone, I think there's been over probably $3 million that I can think of. That's just within this last
the minimum.
The minimum that we've had. But we've seen more surrogates and stops from the candidates themselves in Milwaukee this year, then yeah, they learned from Hillary not coming in 2016.
Yeah.
You never make that mistake again. So you never make that mistake again.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, we've gotten, to Biko's point, better surrogates for our community as well too.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna tell you, they had Lil Boosie come in, what was that, 22?
I was involved with that, so be careful.
No, I'm saying that was a good thing.
Me and David fought about that a little bit.
You shouldn't have, because you know, that was my song. But anyway.
That had nothing to do with it.
But I'm saying we've had younger surrogates.
But you feel
Jersey,
good
and
about
I feel very
the
good
investment,
about it. Yes.
because we've also seen some complaining about there not being enough investment
Absolutely,
in black
yes.
communities, but you feel like Milwaukee
Yes.
is solid.
Milwaukee
Okay,
for sure has got it.
we're
Right.
about 4 minutes before we wrap this up, and we're gonna take some questions. I'm gonna just ask each of you, give me like a 30-second, what everyone in this room can do to reach those, I'm gonna use Angela's term, irregular voters, because this is what this is all about.
I think Sharlen said it best, it's those individuals in your family. You know, if your cousin, your auntie, your uncle, they haven't voted before, they told you they're not voting now. I think having those conversations with people that are close to you and making sure they get to the poll. Also, we had this thing where take 10 people with you. And I mean 10 people in your family, because some people don't want to take strangers. Take 5 people, but do not forget about the young people. My son, 18, he was able to vote. He's off to college. He got his absentee ballot sent to his college. He has voted and mailed it back already. So let's not miss out on those young people. Take them too. Them your little cousins, nieces, they be want money for stuff. Let's go vote.
What about seniors? Seniors that are in facilities, how are they voting in Milwaukee?
One of the things, that's a very good point. So I visit my senior facilities regularly every single month.
They vote.
And I've gotten lots of calls of trying to help them make sure they got their absentee ballots.
Yes.
And making sure that, that the election commission goes there. You know, because a lot of them, like we talked about, transportation is an issue. So we have to go to them. So getting our seniors to vote is paramount, and know that those absentee ballots will make the difference. They make the difference. So one of the things I wanted to say too is we can't discount anybody.
No.
And I think all of us as elected officials right here, we already know we don't discount any voters. If you walk in, when I was campaigning, I walked down the street, if I bumped into you, I'm gonna talk to you about voting, right? So, so you can never discount. I also wanted to make sure too, I got a plug in because I heard everybody else's plug. On the Friday the 25th, we will be at the Black Chambers of Commerce. When I say that we need to change the mindset of our young people, that's exactly what we're gonna do on Friday from 6 to 9 at the Black Chambers of Commerce. So please come out and send all the young people that you have out to the Black Chambers of Commerce on Friday.
All right, give me your 30 seconds, County Exec.
My 30 seconds is that we can't afford to leave any stone unturned.
That's right.
And so I'm going to continue to knock on doors. So I tell everybody, you got 3 T's that you can use. All right, you got your time to be able to give back by making phone calls, licking envelopes, knocking on doors to get people out to vote. You got your talents. You can use your talents to encourage and bring awareness to what is really at stake. And if you ain't got those two, you may have a couple dollars in your pocket. And so if you got a couple dollars in your pocket, make sure to give back. But I want to encourage our community that we got to stop being afraid to talk to one another. There's too much misinformation and disinformation out there. And so, and this is the way I say it, like, we like the smallest things we don't even be paying attention to. Let me do one quick thing. I like doing this. Raise your hand if you've been on the city bus in Milwaukee. All right. None of you have ever ridden the city bus because it's a county bus.
I knew he was going to say it, but I raised it. It's county.
Okay? That is disinformation. Right?
All right.
He knows everybody call it city.
No. Y'all ain't been on the county bus. You haven't been on the city bus because it's the county bus.
It's the county
That's
bus.
an excellent point.
It's a county bus.
It's the county
and
bus.
And the reason why I bring that up is because some of the misinformation and disinformation, it can be so small, but people are believing in it. It's the reason why they got getting involved. So we have to make sure that we are having real, honest, and transparent conversations.
And if you don't have this is something called the Wisconsin Campaign Infrastructure. It's the Harris Walls. It's a fact sheet. It tells you all the things that the Harris Walls team plans to do when elected, and it also talks about what the Biden-Harris administration has done. That's such an excellent example. Think about the stimulus check, how that check got distorted what happened with that check, who was responsible for it, and this notion that somehow black people had more money in their pocket because they got a one-time check during a pandemic, the worst pandemic ever, as if on January 2025, somebody's going to start issuing checks. No, bro, that ain't happening. That was related to a pandemic. There is no pandemic. There will be no checks, but there could be $1 million, $20,000 loans. There could be home owners assistance. There could be 3 million homes built in this country. There can be money invested in infrastructure for bridges and roads and good paying jobs. So there's an opportunity to get way more money than that $1,200 stimmy. So let's not be fooled by the stimmy that was signed by Donald Trump but not initiated. You want to thank anybody for the stimulus? Give it up for Nancy Pelosi.
That's right.
Give it up for Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic House. But we don't want just a stimulus check. We deserve so much more in our communities. We deserve investment. We deserve an opportunity to build that kind of generational wealth, to send our kids to college if they choose to go, to invest in homes, to invest in real estate, to build businesses like this. I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned businesses my entire professional life. I want assistance with that. I want everyone else that wants to own a business to have assistance with that. And we have an opportunity to, in this election, clear choice.
Clear choice. Clear
choice. Not a false or fake equivalency, not they all bad, none of that. One is a convicted felon. Let's be clear about that. One has been adjudicated as a rapist. Let's be clear about that. One has made disparaging remarks about the black community throughout their entire adult life.
With those black jobs.
So we don't suffer fools in our community. When do we let somebody come into our community and talk bad to us?
Right.
And then we turn around and reward them?
Never.
That's not who we are as a people.
No.
That is not who we are. So Milwaukee, first of all, Kim, I want to say I love Milwaukee.
Thank you.
I love Milwaukee. I love all of these. It's black excellence. So I want to thank each and every one of you who came out tonight. I want to thank my illustrious, esteemed panel of young black leaders in this city. You all are phenomenal. We're going to wrap up. And I'm just going to say again, thank you to our incredible hosts that made this night possible. Thanks to everyone who drove from near and far to be with us tonight. We got 15 days.
15?
Let's go. Everybody repeat with me. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right, Milwaukee, we're going to do this.